So, time to get into working on your value proposition canvas. Overall, there are 7 steps to fulfilling a value proposition canvas. And within those steps, there's a couple of sub-steps which I'm going to take you through today. Before you start into a value proposition canvas, it's good to know that a value proposition canvas is paired with a business model or a lean canvas, in the sense that your customer segments make up the right hand side and the unique value proposition or value proposition make up the left hand side. So there are a couple of things that you need to do before coming into a value proposition that you may have already done or you may need to do later on. I've got some tips and tricks here to get you through as a quick starter so you can start off your innovation journey working on a value proposition canvas. So before you start, first question to ask yourself is, what kind of market are you serving? So this is the first question you ask yourself in the business model canvas process. So an organization serves one or several customer segments. You need to choose which of the markets you think you will segment by. So this is not about choosing the market that you will land on in the end. This is the one that you think is the most reasonable or the most rational as to where your solution is going to end. Don't worry, we can change this later, and a lot of the time you will change and you will go through a pivot as you get into your business model canvas, or you go through the value proposition. But by having that line in the sand, that assumption that we work with, it means that we can validate or throw away that assumption as we go through the process. So the first one, the first market that we look at, or market opportunity, is mass market. So this is the looking at a whole approachable market with the roughly similar needs. An example of this is consumer white goods. So if you're producing a new product in the consumer white goods, you wouldn't look at necessarily a niche, you would look at the mass market. Next is a niche market. So if you're catering to specific needs of a specialized customer segment, i.e. pet owners. So if you were creating white goods for the pet owners market, if you were building a value proposition for them, that would be a niche market play. The next is segmented, so targeting your specific parts of a total market based on geographics, demographics, psychographics, or behaviors. An example I've given is segmenting your market by parents in Australia who have just purchased a car. Diversified, so serving 2 or more unrelated markets with the different needs. For example, Amazon, who were online retail sales initially, they came up with a business model to move into cloud computing, and that's because they felt their unique value proposition was going to be that they could leverage their retail footprint to resell and remarket a lot of their cloud services. So that's diversified. So multi-sided platforms or multi-sided markets. Now these are the ones that serve 2 or more interdependent customers. An example of this is Airbnb, and that's because Airbnb serves a customer who is looking to get accommodation, and it also serves a customer who is looking to rent out their room or their apartment or their house. So there's 2 sides to that market. So they have 2 different needs, and their service, their business, tailor to both sides of that market. So the next step you need to do after you've chosen your market, what type of market you are serving, is to think about what persona you're going to do your first value proposition for. So outside of mass market, the majority of what you will come up with, you may have 1 or more personas that you are dealing with, and this might be a good chance to mold your personas together and come up with one single value proposition, or it might be a good opportunity for you to break out your personas into even more granular spaces. Now, if you've got more than 1 persona, this is a very quick and dirty way for you to decide which of your personas to do a value proposition on first. Now, the whole idea with this is to continue to work on value propositions, working on your business model canvas and evolving them. So choosing a point in time and becoming a real expert in that niche and empathizing with them down to a very granular level, you will bring out a lot of insight that will help you in tailoring value propositions to other personas as you go. So don't think that you need to do all of your personas in one. Looking at one particular niche is actually a lot easier exercise to get through particularly when you're talking about the pains and gains and removing any of the ambiguity in that space. So the way that I do this is an importance difficulty matrix. So looking at based on the choice of market and the personas you've got. So choosing your personas and looking at the importance. So the pain points that you think that that persona has versus the other ones. So if I have two personas, I'm not going to put them necessarily on the line based on if they're exactly the same. What I'm going to say is those in relation to each other, which one's got a higher pain point than the other. Then the high opportunities or the high importance versus the low opportunities and low importance. So this is finger in the air, kind of looking into the crystal ball. Do we feel like there is a bigger opportunity in this market, weighing up some of the other things around, the competition, how well we can serve them, how unique our idea is compared to our competitors, where we think the opportunity is, therefore the higher importance versus the lower important one. So I might look at my two personas and go, okay, well, it's quite clearly that this is the first persona to work on because it's a higher opportunity and it's got a higher importance. So the third step in defining your persona and getting you started into your value proposition canvas is understanding not just your persona, but understanding whereabouts they are in their journey. This helps you with the first step within the value proposition canvas around the jobs and understanding what jobs they need to do in that scenario, in that situation. So you want to choose where your users are in their journey and roughly define where the journey starts and where it finishes. So when designing something for an employee, do we talk about a day, a week, a month, a year in their life? Or do we think about what happens during work hours only? Or do we think about what's happening outside work hours? So these are some questions that kind of help you think about and conceptualize what I'm talking about in terms of the journey. Some additional prompters to help you define what their journey is and the boundaries of those journeys is timeline. So when does the journey start or finish, i.e. is it just work hours? A time period is the period of time that they will have the problems you can solve, i.e. is it during pregnancy from conception to birth? Environment. Is there a particular environment, i.e. is it at the office? Actions. Do we look at them only when they're doing a particular activity, i.e. is it while they're playing golf, is it searching online, browsing Facebook, etc.? Hot tip on this one is to try and define the most likely journey where your end service will interact with them in the physical and digital worlds. This is both from awareness through to purchase, using, and servicing. So trying to get your journey and define your journey in a way that it will be a higher opportunity for you to interact with them. Great, so now you've defined your persona and you understand a little bit more about your market. We're going to get straight into the jobs to be done. So jobs to be done describes the things your customers are trying to get done in their work or in their life. A customer job could be the tasks they're trying to perform and complete, the problems they are trying to solve, or the needs that they are trying to satisfy. We need to make sure that we take the customer's perspective when investigating the jobs. Now, what I mean by the customer's perspective is looking at a persona. We need to be talking from their shoes and what are they thinking. We also need to be thinking about the journey that they're on. Where are they in their journey? So not trying to think about what we think their solution would be to their problems, but trying to think about from their point of view, where are they in their journey and what are actually important things to them versus what we think are important. So when we come into defining our jobs, we distinguish between the three main types of customer jobs and a supporting job. So the first one is functional jobs. So functional jobs is when your customer tries to perform or complete a specific task or a specific problem. For example, mow the lawn, eat healthy as a consumer, write a report, or help clients as a professional. So say I've chosen an office worker. They're a mum or a dad, and the journey that I want to build my value proposition for is traveling to and from work. So when it comes to functional jobs, we're looking at what are the things that they need to do when they're on that journey. Well, because they're a mum and dad, they need to drop kids off at school. So remember, this is generalizing based on what we know about the persona at this time. So we can assume that at least some of them are going to be dropping their kids off at school. Doesn't matter if they don't all do it, but just putting down. The next one in functional jobs, get in the car. So, or start driving the car. Or just drive car. That's the job, right? Now, when we start talking about driving car, we might go, well, hang on, what if they don't have fuel? So, refuel a car. And you can kind of start to break into some of the other things that they might need to do in and around that particular job. Same with the kids. So they might have a job of picking up the kids as well. They might also have to take the kids to sport after work. Sport or extracurriculars. Cool. So there you get an idea of what the functional jobs are, and you can keep to break those out all the way along the journey that they've got. So the next is the social jobs. So we've got functional jobs, the thing that they're doing. But now we need to look at when your customers want to look good or gain power or status. Now, one of the key defining factors of purchase decisions, of how we do things and why we do them, is about growing status. So the majority of humans, whether they know it or not, are trying to grow some kind of status in their life. And that's where social jobs come into play. So in the case of our parenting, one of the social jobs when they're dropping their kids off would be keeping calm when driving, so their kids learn good habits. And so social jobs can go on around that. What are some of the other things they might be doing in this space? They might want to drive a good car. Good car or better car than their colleagues. And so if you look at that one there, you can break that down into some even more. So, asking yourself why. Why do they need to drive a better car? Is there anything that we know about them around the status that they're trying to get by having a better car? So that's your social jobs, and you can break that down even more. What are some of the other social aspects about what they're doing, who they are, and what they're doing in the time that we're thinking about them? So they're personal emotional jobs. Now, when your customers seek a specific emotional state, such as feeling good or secure, for example, seeking peace of mind regarding one's investments as a consumer, or achieving the feeling of job security at one's workplace. So, in their personal emotional jobs, what we want to think about is what are they trying to do for themselves? Whilst they're doing these other activities, what are some of the other things they're trying to do? So, some of the personal jobs here might be thinking about the day ahead when they're driving to work, or reflecting on day gone. And then you can break into some of the other personal emotional jobs, looking at the different types of emotions, looking at some of the more personal things about the person. You can make some assumptions at this point, putting them down as many as you can. Now the last one is supporting jobs. So customers are also performing supporting jobs in the context of purchasing and consuming value, either as consumers or as professionals. These jobs arise from the three different roles. So the first one is buyer of value. So are they buying value from anyone else whilst they're in their journey, or whilst we're whilst they are this particular persona. So our persona is office workers, mum and dads traveling to and from work. They might be buying, well, they are buying petrol, right? Okay. Um, they might be buying office supplies. They might be buying snacks or dinner for the kids. Now, when we talk about our supporting jobs, these are very good opportunities. They are very good opportunities for us to find places that we can interact with our customer where we might not have thought about them before, where we might interface with them through awareness and also capture them when they're in at the point of either creating value or purchasing value. So they might seem a little bit ambiguous at this point, but they do come in handy as we think about them later on in the journey. So the next one is co-creator of value. So jobs related to co-creating value with your organization, such as posting product reviews and feedback, or even participating in the design of a product or service. Now, I haven't defined much about what my office worker is doing and how that's related to this work, but I'm going to go and say that this office worker is taking calls on the trip, taking work calls, right? Work sales calls, for example. So they might be a co-creator of value because they're helping your business, or they might be on a group call or something like that. Transfer of value. So jobs related to the end of a value proposition's life cycle, such as cancelling a subscription, disposing of a product, or transferring it to others, or reselling it. I can't think of any off the top of my head here, but if you do a quick Google on transfer of value, there are some great tips on how to come up with those for your journeys and personas. Again, the supporting jobs can be difficult at times to come up with because they are a little bit ambiguous, but by having a think through where the value is and what value is to your customer and the value you're going to provide, and if there's any sort of points in time where your persona is going to buy value, create value, or transfer that value, it's great to put them down. Cool. So now we're on to pains and gains. So gains, first of all, we're going to list out based on hang on one second. So now that we've got all of our jobs to be done, we want to rank them in order of importance to our persona. Now, this is where some of the great insight starts to come out. So we know that they've got to do all these functional jobs, but we want to know, with all the functional jobs that they've got going on in their environment, how important is the functional versus the social, emotional, and supporting jobs to them? So we might say driving the car is quite important, but this persona is an office worker, their mum and dad, and they're traveling to and from work. We can assume they've probably got kids in the car or some description. So you know we're gonna put it here as like driving the car is pretty important, but they're actually probably in their mind thinking about the day ahead might actually be more important to them than driving the car itself. So dropping the kids off at school. So where does that sit? Okay, well, you know, driving the car is important, yes, but you know the reason they're doing it is dropping the kids off at school. So after that is picking up the kids, taking the kids to extra bus. Okay, we're going to start to put some of these in, right? So refueling the car is right down here. Now, where is the reflecting on the day gone? Well, we said that the emotional job is up here. Okay, now we can start to look at the social jobs. So keeping calm when driving so the kids learn good habits. Okay, so to them, is that more important than driving the car in a safe way or driving the car at all? Probably, because they're a parent. They care more about their kids than they care about their driving, right? So we put that there. Drive a good car or better car than their colleagues. Well, that's important socially, but I mean, this is a mum or dad, right? So they're down here. And then all of these things here. So buying office supplies, okay, we're going to say this is pretty low on their priority list. Taking work sales calls on the trip. Okay, so what we don't really know about this customer is, how important is this job to them? So let's assume that, we've had a bit of a think about that, we've spoken to some customers. Actually quite important because taking these sales calls on the car trip, is going to keep them their job. So it's actually up higher than some of the other ones. Buying the petrol, cool, might be insignificant. Many a time as a parent myself, I've almost run out of petrol on the way to drop off to schools. Buying snacks or dinner for the kids. Well, actually, because kids are up on the priority list, this one's quite high up. And so now we've got a list of the priorities of our tasks, and you can see that the emotional jobs take priority with this particular customer in this particular scenario. And so that's a good insight in itself as to that the functional jobs are less important more so than some of the emotional jobs, and we can look at those emotional jobs and how we can overcome some of the gains, overcome some of the pains, and add some gains to them. So now when we're looking, now we're looking to start to translate some of this new insight into how can we make our customers happy. So this is where we can come up and we do a little bit of ideation around, what can we do with our persona. So what would make our customer happy? So we answer the four questions here first off. So what would make our customer happy? So making our customer happy, okay, potentially, a day planner. So I'm just going to put this in any color to start with, and we'll color code them later. So maybe a day planner, right? Maybe there's some notifications about fuel in the car. See, I don't really know what my solution is at this point, so I'm just going to come up with a whole bunch of anything. If you kind of know what your solution is, at this point you can start to talk about some of the benefits of the features that you're putting in place. The next question I've got, what would make their life jobs to be done easier? Okay, so automated cars would be great. So automated driving. What are some of the other things? Thinking about the day ahead, reflecting on the day gone. Okay, so maybe there's a prompt or chat service to ask me how my day was. So you can start coming up with some good ideas based on what they've got. Now, the next question we've got, what does this customer dream about or have a vision for? So, what are they dreaming about? So, in this situation, they're probably dreaming about having, 100% safe trips. Okay. They're probably dreaming of having no sales calls when in the car. Okay, so what are their goals and why? So what are the goals in this situation? So we're going to have to ask ourselves that. Oops, double up there. So the goals in this situation. Some of the goals here is like get to work on time. Get the kids to school. Okay, so now we've got some of the gains that they've got from this situation. This is a little bit hard to explain exactly what their gains are when they're in this situation. So if you haven't already done so, or you don't already have in mind about what your products and services are going to be, now's a good time to jump over and talk about very quickly what your products and services could be. So if you're a team coming together to build an application, it's a good time to put down some sort of a prompter to say we're building an app. If you're a team who is potentially in service delivery, maybe you're a call center, it could be a new service for your call center. So call center service. So for this demonstration, I'm going to say that my service is a concierge service. So concierge service in a call center. And when we get over to the product and services later on, when we know a little bit more about our value proposition, we'll be able to break down the products and services even further. Okay, so coming back to the gains. So what have they got to gain from a concierge service from myself as a business? So what would make my customer happy? So then I can start to break out, well, okay, so it might be a phone call just before I get in the car. Telling me my agenda for the day. Okay. It may be a phone call at end of day to discuss and debrief on my day. So there you can kind of get some ideas around where they are in their journey, and that's in their function. That's related to reflecting on the day and thinking about the day ahead. Keeping calm when driving. So, is there any gains that they can get that we can give to them? Potentially not, but could be about tips, providing tips on safe driving. Maybe it's via blog. Right, this is just about ideation. Some of the things that we think that we can provide to them. Taking the work sales calls on trips. Maybe we can offer them a virtual PA service for out of hours calls. Buying snacks or dinner for the kids. Maybe there is a service we can do to call ahead to healthier choices. IDOD Subway versus McDonald's. And so you get the idea. Okay. So that's mapping out your gains. Now with your gains, we want to look at them around the required, expected, desired, and unexpected. So if they've got a concierge service, for example, what do we think the required gains are? What do we think they expect to get from this? What are the desired gains and what are the unexpected gains? So we start to color code these. So they might have, they require to have 100% safe trips. So we put those down before. They require from a concierge service, maybe they require this, right? Maybe they require that out of hours service from that. Now expected, potentially they expect to have a day planner. I don't know much about this as a service, this hypothetical service that we can provide. And so you go through those until you kind of get to the unexpected ones. Now, going through this process, you might actually work out, well, hang on, there's some more things we can give to them, some more wow factors with the unexpected gains. Once you've done that, you want to rank them again in terms of what's essential to our service from the customer's point of view. You will find that sometimes the unexpected gains will be up with the essential once you put them on the paper. So this is just about giving you that other tangential to organize your thoughts on. Now taking a step back from that, you'll see that once it's all organized, you'll be able to look at all of your things and go, okay, so the essential things are here. And that's where we can draw the lines with what gains are we going to give to them. Now moving on to pains. So we want to ask ourselves, what is annoying or troubling our customer in this situation? What is preventing them from getting their jobs done? and what is keeping their customer awake at night. A couple of different ways to categorize these is to look at undesired outcomes, problems, and characteristics, some of the obstacles they might have, and some of the risks that they have. So there will be overlap with some of these, but that's fine. So some of the undesired outcomes. So they might crash. They might get a flat tire. Some of the obstacles they might have. Maybe it is school times and school times changing. Maybe traffic. Okay, what are some of the risks? So the risks they've got, well, they've got accidents. They've got other bad drivers. I think they've got the risk, which is talking on the phone, being distracted. Okay, we want to list all of those out. Now, when it comes down to getting all of those there, we want to talk about what is the overall pain to them in this situation on a regular basis. So this is not pain about it necessarily when it happens, when the bad things happen, but on a regular basis. So more than likely, traffic is probably the most extreme one because it happens so often, so it's extreme. Flat tire doesn't happen very often. A crash hopefully doesn't happen very often. Being distracted can be quite extreme because that does happen quite often, right? So more often, more likely to happen, could be more extreme. Bad drivers on the road, accidents around them. Okay, cool. So I've done that. So now I get a good idea about what are their real pains when it comes to traveling to and from work. And again, I can see from the top of it. Okay, well, they've got a lot more obstacles and risks than in undesired outcomes, and so you can see that sort of extra insight around what they are. So before we move on, now we can take a step back and look at our persona. So we understand about what are the jobs they're trying to do in this scenario, what are the main priorities if we look at the top of the list. We can look at what are their gains, so what have they got to gain from improving this situation through the use of some sort of a service similar to what we've got. We can look at what their pains are. So what are their pains on a day-to-day basis? So right now, if you were doing a business model canvas, you can summarize some of this insight into your business model canvas. And you can write it out as to, from their point of view, who they are, what are they doing, what's the main priorities for them, how is the emotional and the social jobs intertwine with the functional jobs, and how do some of those scenarios that cause the pain play out. What are some of the things that they could benefit from? And this is where you can really start to outline who your persona is and what's the opportunity in your market. Gain creators. So moving on to the other side of the canvas, we're going to start to talk about what's our value proposition. So the gain creators are really starting to outline what your features are. Now, gain creators is where we start to introduce the use of the jobs to be done concept. So jobs to be done, if you talk about jobs to be done into something that you can turn into a feature, you can use this little vernacular. So the when, the situation, I want, what is their motivation, so I can, so their expected outcome. So for example, you take your gains, so looking at your gains, so for this one here, which is the virtual PA service, so I'm just going to copy and paste some of these over here. Okay, I'm going to take a yellow one, and put that there. So, okay, when now, can I build something out that is going to provide save tips on driving? So yes, I can do a blog, right? So when I am at home, I want to read about driving tips, safe driving tips. So I can be a better driver for my family. Okay. Now, each one of these we're going to categorize into the different gains, so the categories of them. So required, expected. I think it's desired, right? I'm just going to put a line in the sand. I think that's a desired outcome of my service. Now, day planner. So I'm going to turn this one into a job to be done format. So I've got my call center, and I believe that I can set up a service that's right on 7 a.m. or when people are expected to be inside the car. There's a quick dial button, so when I get inside my car, I want a phone call to initiate so I can start talking to my PA. Okay. And so you go on like that until you've gotten kind of a good idea about the top gains of your service, of your idea, and some of the features you can do. Now at this point you'll start to realize, okay, well maybe there's some features that I thought were going to work and they don't really line up with what I think their pains are. Now you can put them in here, but I just urge you to have a think about whether they really are features that your customer does care about. Because if you've gone through this process and you've really kind of looked at it from their lens, what's their pains, what's their gains, if it doesn't line up to any one of those, is the feature really worthwhile? Is it something that they want? You know, there might be a gap in the market, but is there a market in the gap, right? So you need to ask yourself this question. So once you've done that, again, ranking them from essential through to nice to have on the side over here. So I think that, you know, that one's essential, that one's a nice to have, and then ranking them so you can kind of go, okay, well, line in the sand is I think these are the top priority features that I will take to market based on what I know about my customer. Pain relievers, similar process. So looking at all of the undesired outcomes, the obstacles and risks. We're going to start to take these, so we can take this whole series of things from over here and we can bring them over here as kind of a guider, and we're going to go how can we help our customers relieve their pains. So you can start to put in some more jobs to be done here, typing them out. So when so traffic, when I get into my car, I want a notification or message telling me about the traffic so that I know that I will be late. You might actually say, hey, well, we've got a concierge service that has some smarts that can analyze the traffic from hours ahead and give you a call. So when 1 hour, I am planning to get to my car, planning to get my family ready, I want a phone call telling me that traffic is bad. So I can rush the family. Cool. That'd be a pretty good pain reliever right there, and a good feature that you can add into your service. If you had a technology opportunity, you could make it a notification of some description. Okay. So once you've done those, again, you want to rank those out. Now, your pain relievers and your gain creators become a combination of your features and your value proposition in terms of describing how your service can make the absolute, best thing of a bad situation for your customer, and give them a whole lot of extra gains in their life. Now, once you've done this and you understand sort of roughly what your gain creators are and your pain relievers are, this is where you go back to your products and services. So this might be the good chance for you to pivot away from what your original products were. So I've been pushing up against it a lot the whole way through, going concierge service from a call center, probably not the best idea. So this is probably a good time for us to have an accompanying app. Okay, so we need to think about that, because all of those notifications and everything like that, maybe they're not the best thing for my customer because they're busy. Maybe they can't pick up a call, but maybe they can just have a quick look down at their phone. So we start to look at that, and then you can break out, some of the features and whatnot of your service. You can look into as well the different types of products and services. So your physical and tangible. So it might actually be that we give them something physical as part of this. Intangible. So there might be some IP behind what you're doing. What is that that you're going to do? And what is that product or what is that service and the IP related to it? Digital, like the apps and services around that, and then financial. So financial, investment funds. It might be providing them certain, money, funding, the rest like that. So a couple of different sort of prompters there to help you come up with those. So my example, I've just gone concierge service from a call center with an accompanying app for notifications. Cool. And that is a value proposition canvas. So like I said, do this for each one of your personas, running through it. Take a step back at the end, look at the whole thing, try to summarize it into the two sections within your business model canvas, which is over here. Answering again these questions here as you go through, and writing out what your customer segments are and what is your market. And then putting your value propositions is, so what value do you deliver to the customer, which one of the customer's problems are you helping to solve. So summarizing it down by looking at your value proposition, taking a step back from your features, taking a step back from your jobs, looking at the inside amongst the point when you step back. Cool. Okay, good luck with the value proposition canvas. Will be online and available to answer any questions. Remember, trying to do this as fast as possible is the goal. So skimming through, getting high level, just putting in dot points is a very good way to get this started and getting the whole canvas done, and then coming back and iterating on it. So good luck.